All right, Marilyn, it looks like you are the only one that is connected right now. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully a couple more people will come on. Let's see here. So starting with the warm-up, it says that you guys are all superheroes, which is kind of corny. But I want you guys to think about your superpowers, whether that's listening or patience. Maybe think of a motto that reflects your mission as a foster parent, and kind of be keeping that in mind as we go through the day. Since we only have very, very few people today, I will not make you share and put you on the spot. So to review from last week, we discussed that we talked about the fact that behavior comes from somewhere. Behavior can act as a clue to help us discover and then kind of understand the needs of children and teens in our care. And we've talked about how the primary need of children and teens exposed to chronic trauma is safety or avoiding danger. A lot of times kids will sacrifice their other needs in order to survive kind of just the world around them. We talked about how kids may perceive danger in situations that don't appear dangerous or frightening to us. We discussed how when kids invest their energy into survival, they kind of do that at the expense of developing other really key skills. And usually those are skills that would kind of help them recover from the distress in the moment and really effectively navigate their daily lives. So those are kind of put on the back burner when kids are focused on survival. And then we talked about how it's really difficult to address or change a child or teen's behavior if you don't know what the behavior is communicating. That's why we try to be curious about what's underneath the behaviors that we're seeing. So I'm going to skip the report back since it's just you, Marilyn. But last week we discussed, we asked each of you to observe a challenging behavior and identify triggers and functions of that behavior. So observe a challenging behavior that you see in your child or partner or maybe a coworker really often and try to identify what starts it and why you think the person does that. So that was our question from last week. Now, so moving on to today. Today's session is really going to focus on some really important people, which is you guys. And to care for children and teens, it's really important that you feel supported and you feel like you have tools to manage your own feelings. And it's really difficult to support another person when you're really overwhelmed, stressed, exhausted, or just generally don't feel like you're in a good place. And so for this reason, we kind of use this illustration of reminding you to put on your own oxygen mask first before helping somebody else. Just take care of yourself before you can take care of others. So parenting, as I'm sure that you guys know, is one of the most difficult jobs that an individual can have, really. So even with biological children, there's going to be times when it can be really challenging to figure out what a child or teen needs in any given moment. And this can be because of a ton of different factors, but you know, each child has their different unique characteristics, and then there's a really dynamic process of development that happens, and then, you know, parenting itself is really complicated in nature. Hello, Elise. Let me write you down. Hi. You and Marilyn are my only two. I think people are slow getting around. It's been crazy this week, but I'll try not to put you guys on the spot too much when I ask questions today. But our theme today is putting on your own oxygen mask. So we're discussing caring for yourself as a parent and as an individual, and kind of the importance of that when caring for your foster kiddos and how that kind of correlates. So parenting in general is hard, as I was saying, but foster parenting adds a lot more layers of complexity to the parenting process. And foster parents really often, they kind of don't have that luxury of easing into the process. Often, you know, a lot of you begin your journey with a foster child or foster teen at a stressful moment. And you kind of might not know very much about their strengths and needs and their history. And so the child that comes into your home may come from a very different background, whether that's, race, religion, language, SES, gender, sexual identity, or just general life experiences that differ from your own. And so these differences can really add to that complexity and that complex relationship between you and the children in your home. So let's check in with Olivia and talk about some of the behaviors she displays that might be kind of challenging. So it says here that Olivia has been in a new foster home for about 6 months. It is her longest placement since entry into the system. Olivia is 5 years old, but she acts like she's a 2 or 3 year old most of the time. She needs constant support to complete daily self-care tasks, including eating and using the toilet. She has very limited capacity for independent play and is persistent in her attempts to engage in positive or negative attention. When Olivia's foster parents provide attention, Olivia often rejects it, screaming, "I hate you and I want a new family." Even minor redirection leads to severe and persistent tantrums that include screaming, crying, throwing things, cursing, and at times aggression towards her foster parents. And then even on good days, she still melts down every night at bedtime, crying and clinging when her foster mother leaves the room. So as we've kind of previously discussed, we've previously discussed in the group some of the challenging behaviors that you've seen in your own homes. So I'm sure that for some of you, these behaviors that Olivia is having right now with the tantrums and kind of the large emotional responses, I'm sure that some of you have experienced those as well with kiddos in your home. So what do you think it's like for Olivia's foster parents when she engages in some of these challenging behaviors? How do you think they might feel within this? If anyone wants to share.
Well, I think I'm not personally a foster parent, but I've been a resource family social worker for 15 years. And I think that a lot of my families, they feel discouraged. They feel like they're not doing a good job. They feel like they lack skills. So I think that's the hardest part, is getting them, encouraging them to have confidence in their abilities, and that these things take time and a lot of wraparound services.
Yes, for sure. And I think it goes back to having to remember that behavior makes sense. And I feel like, that makes sense. That's something, that we can all be like, oh yeah, no one just acts like that to act like that. But I think in the moment, in those stressful periods, when you are providing, love and care and safety to the best of your ability, it can be really difficult to remember in the moment that, this is occurring for a reason, and I need to seek out that reason and kind of what might be triggering that. So yeah, that's good. There's probably a lot of, just frustration surrounding this kind of thing, like you said, being discouraged, things like that. So I have to keep along with my PowerPoint. So some questions for you guys. I know, like you said, at least you're not all foster parents. But if you're here if you're online with us and you can see the slide here, can you guys see the slideshow if you are online? I always worry that it's not showing.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So, either as a foster parent or, as a foster resource, what are some of the things that have been most challenging? At least you just said, helping parents kind of come to terms with all of those big feelings and helping them understand that these things take time. So what are some other challenges, or what do you wish you would have known before becoming a foster parent? Or how do you guys feel personally when parenting feels hard? Anyone have any responses to this for me? If not, that is okay.
I just want to, add another thing. I think that foster parenting it can be really isolating sometimes, because, you can't, Well, you can talk to your friends, but your friends might not be foster parents and might not understand
Right.
what you're going through, and so that adds to like some of the frustration as well. And
Yes.
they haven't been TBRI trained and don't get that these kids have lots of trauma and reasons for these behaviors. They just are going to see the behaviors. And
yes, and I mean, there's probably some judgment that some parents face for that from foster families. And that's something that we're going to talk about kind of a little bit more today, because today is focused on you guys and kind of equipping you guys with tools. And so a big part that we're going to talk about is having a good support system and having those people that you can turn to and trying to make sure that isolation does not happen. But, there's just some answers that they provide here. I know in my last session that I taught, some of the challenges for that last group was just like things like, having issues, kids having issues with going to the bathroom on their own, not being able to feed themselves, teenagers smoking, sneaking out, things like that. So, there's a huge range. But other foster parents, you guys have all probably shared some common challenges, but one of the big things that they discuss is it's really hard to parent from the middle. So coming into a child's life and kind of not knowing that child's history or kind of the relationships that they might have had in the past. So you're really coming into it kind of blind a lot of times. Just the unpredictability of foster parenting with, transitioning, behaviors, things like that. There's a lot of things that are unexpected and unpredictable. And then in general, there's, a feeling of lack of control, a lot of times lack of information or resources, which at least you were kind of touching on there. So it can be really difficult. And I'm sure that you guys all know that. So children and teens in foster care kind of enter into the relationship with you and your family looking through, a lot of times, not always, but often they're looking through a lens that's kind of colored by abuse, or maybe maltreatment, neglect, loss, separation a lot of times. And so a lot of times they've developed these kind of self-protective strategies, and they might distance or disconnect or kind of withdraw for the adults who are attempting to help them. And for foster parents, it can feel really personal and really emotionally draining when this happens. And so the challenge is making a connection and a meaningful relationship with these kiddos. So why are we talking about your guys' feelings? Foster parents obviously play an incredibly important role in the lives of these kiddos and teens. The relationships that can be formed can be really pivotal for a lot of children. And this is why we're kind of talking about your feelings, because you guys matter. And the more in control and regulated and competent that you guys feel as foster parents or foster resources, the more likely that you're going to feel effective in caring for children, and the more likely that that child or teen is to kind of view you as a safe resource. So before we go any further, they have a little caveat here. Almost everybody struggles with hard feelings, and even your less attractive feelings make sense. That's what we talked about last week. So even as an adult, those negative feelings, they make sense and they're valid. And so it can feel really personal when a child or teen calls you a name or, pushes your buttons or seems really determined to hurt you. And it's okay to feel how you feel. And it's what you do with those feelings that really matters the most, and how you react when parenting kiddos who have experienced trauma. So you have that little caveat. So now moving into self-care. Let me make sure I'm keeping up with everyone. We have Marilyn, Elise, Melinda, and Angela. Okay. We're getting more people. So moving on to self-care. So generally, how are all of you guys, how would you rate yourself in your self-care practices right now? Are you guys doing a pretty good job? Are you guys struggling? What would you guys say at this point in time? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so me right now, I'm doing pretty good. school's over for the semester, feeling good, doing, lots of outdoor activities now the weather's getting nice, things like that. So personally, I'm doing well. But there, a lot of times, people aren't doing well. People are going to struggle, which is completely normal. You guys probably know that self-care is the ability to kind of actively focus on your own basic needs, for safety and security and connection, things like that. But all of our self-care practices are going to kind of ebb and flow depending on our situation and our circumstance at the moment. So those of us who are doing really well maybe could have been struggling last week, or you guys might struggle next month. And our experience and our feelings about our own self-care success is likely to kind of vary over time. And it's important to remember that we tend to do a better job with self-care when things are going really well. So self-care is going to be easy on easy days. And we usually struggle when there's more challenges in our lives. And so our self-care practices are more likely to kind of break down or just become absent completely during those moments of stress when we really need them most, which is not good. So we're going to talk about that. So what makes a hard day? There's going to be a lot of different factors for everyone that makes a really hard day that kind of affect your stress levels and that can contribute to kind of negative feelings. So specifically, factors related to your child or teen. If you guys can see the screen here, we just have a little list. Normal, just child behaviors, tough behaviors, disruptions, whether that's a visit with the family, therapy appointments, unexpected transitions can be really difficult. Just bearing witness to your kiddo, to, their painful feelings, to painful memories or experiences, kind of, that secondhand trauma that can occur. And then having to advocate for what makes sense for your kiddo, whether that's with the school, whether that's, with their worker, whether that's with their therapist, things like that, that can be really exhausting. There's also going to be factors related to your larger world. So things that aren't really related to the kids themselves, but, bills, the needs of your other children, maintaining your own relationships. Again, the disruptions in the schedule. If you're a working parent, job demands, school demands, if you're at school, any multitude of things. And then there's also, we have to remember that there is positive stressors, whether that's a new job, a new home, birthdays, celebrations, things like that. Those can be stressful, but in a good way. So there can be things that are related to your own experiences that can make for a really hard day as well. Being tired, sick, hungry, overworked. For me personally, being hungry, that can really affect my day. I get hangry very easily. Feeling like you're being pulled in multiple directions. When your expectations don't match what happens, your own personal history and your push buttons. When something threatens your feelings of competence and competence, your own just feelings, even if it's unrelated to the child or teen, and kind of heightened anxiety or arousal, just kind of waiting for something to go wrong. So that's a lot of factors. That's a lot of different things. And I'm sure that you guys have your own little kind of push buttons and factors that make for a hard day. But each one that we've discussed can increase your feelings of stress on any given day. And these stressors aren't really, they're not mutually exclusive. And they can add to and kind of affect one another. So if you're tired and kind of feeling sick and, you might find your child's behaviors that day even more stressful than usual when you're not feeling physically well. Or, your kiddo's most challenging behaviors can make you feel really tired. So it's all kind of connected in that way. So we're going to talk about 3 different strategies that can help you focus on self-care and staying really regulated in the moments when you need self-regulation most. So the 3 things that we're going to discuss is acknowledge that this is a hard thing, being aware, staying aware of yourself, your feelings, and your push buttons, and building a self-care toolbox. So the first thing, acknowledging that this is hard. Do any of us, this is theoretical, or hypothetical question. Do any of us really always give ourselves permission to feel what we feel? I highly doubt it. The key word here being always. Why is it hard for us to always allow ourselves to feel what we feel? You guys have any responses to that? Maybe it's, someone talked about last session how, the expectations of being an adult, it's expected that you should be able to regulate your feelings really well and always remain calm, cool, and collected. Maybe we don't always allow ourselves to feel the way we do because that's going to cause some conflict or confrontation that might be uncomfortable for us. Or maybe we're just confused about how we feel, and so we just kind of suppress things. So it's really common for us to experience shame and guilt about our feelings. But this can cause us to criticize and question the validity and morality and importance of what we feel. And so in response to this, we may kind of shut down or deny or dismiss our own feelings and experiences. So if you guys are on the computer with us and you see the PowerPoint, here's our lovely little road that we always talk about. But remembering the express road, I think almost all of you have been here when we discussed this. So the express road, we talked about how when we're faced with signals of possible danger, or when children are faced with signals of possible danger, their brains can kind of take that express road to action, and they kind of bypass the whole processing and evaluation and planning parts. And so the same is true for adults who experience stress or have their own traumatic experiences or traumatic pasts. The challenges of parenting children and teens who've experienced trauma may lead you guys to take the express road to reaction as well. So if we look here, what are some of the clues that you guys might be on the express road to just action? How do you guys know when you're kind of feeling stressed out and anxious and kind of avoid all those planning and processing steps? Do you guys have any clues about yourselves that you want to share? Last group I had, they discussed they might get really snippy with their spouse or the kids in their home, things like that. Some of the people talked about they cry really easily when they're feeling really overwhelmed and stressed. So some of the examples they have here, saying something mean, rejecting the help of others, the conversation of others, lecturing, which is really interesting, isolating, that's a big one, yelling, power struggles, feeling hopeless, things like that. Go through here. So the goal is to try to stay on the main road. The more that we become aware of and kind of pay attention to our stressors or our push buttons, the more we're able to anticipate and manage our reactions. So when we anticipate, it puts us in a particular kind of state of mind, and that state of mind is one that allows us to think and plan and problem solve and kind of slow down and respond instead of react. Checking in with ourselves can help us pay attention to all those kind of clues that suggest that we're entering the express road. And just as a reminder, these skills are really easy, like I said, to practice on easy days. So maybe, start trying to practice these kind of things that we're talking about on those easy days and work towards being able to implement them on days that feel really hard. So moving on to our building our toolkits, it's important to remember that you can't use the same tool for every situation, and not one tool can be perfect. There's going to be a lot of different tools that we can use for self-care. Preparation tools, we're going to talk about, I think, 4 different kinds. So preparation tools, recovery tools, in your pocket tools, and ongoing self-care tools. And like I said, you can't use the same one for every situation. So that's kind of why we have to have a repertoire in our toolbox. I'm sure you guys have all heard that phrasing. So starting off with tools to prepare ourselves. none of us would expect to be able to, run one of those fun 5K color runs, or, do a performance, or, cook a meal for 20 people without taking some time to prepare. And so a lot goes into being and feeling ready to take on all those activities. So as an example, think about, if you guys are cooking a Thanksgiving dinner. That's a lot of preparation. At least it always was in my household. My mom would start, a week ahead of time, going to the store, planning the meals, and was very stressed about it. So she took a lot of preparation, and then day of, it was insane. She would have to get up at a certain time and make sure that different things were going in the oven at the correct time, things like that. So whether you're cooking the turkey, doing the mashed potatoes, stuffing, cranberry sauce, all of those things. So we don't usually think about everyday stressful situations kind of in the same way that we think about, preparing for a big Thanksgiving dinner. But it can be really helpful to prepare for those everyday situations as well. So let's say that you need to go to a school meeting to advocate for your foster child, kind of with some of the providers and resources who have been a real challenge to work with. You might prepare by, using positive self-talk if you're nervous about it, with having a plan of action, maybe, bringing a support person with you, getting a good night's sleep the night before, making sure you're not hungry, which again, I think that's so funny that they actually have that listed. That's a huge thing that a lot of us don't realize a lot of times. So those are just a couple small things or examples of tools that you can use to prepare yourself when you know that you're about to enter a stressful situation. Now, in your pocket tools are going to be a little bit different. So if you think of a different tough situation, if you're on the highway and you get a flat tire and you're stranded now. So this kind of situation happens without warning. And hopefully you're going to have some tools in the trunk of your car to make the situation a little bit more manageable, a spare tire, things like that. So some tools you might use to manage unexpected stressful situations might be those things like deep breathing, counting to 10, trying to, I was always taught to relax your muscles, but do it from the top of your head and just kind of go all the way down your body to your toes. Taking a second to step away, walk away from the situation. Remember those self-affirmation statements. So it's important to keep your in-your-pocket strategies really simple and concrete. A lot of people might think that, some of these are kind of silly, whether that's the counting or the breathing. And not everything's going to work the same way for different people. But it's important to keep these strategies, like I said, really simple and accessible. And what's unique about these is that these different strategies keep us, our thinking brain engaged, and they also keep our bodies regulated and our responses kind of on that main road. That's the purpose of the in-your-pocket tools. And a lot of them kind of lead to changes in your emotional or physical state because you're actively doing something to shift it. So all of these examples are kind of more active in nature. So the third type of self-care tool is recovery tools. Research shows that stress doesn't stop or go away the moment that a stressful situation is passed. Often our body and our mind can continue to experience that stress or the impact of the event after it's occurred. And because of this, it's important to build both those in-your-pocket tools that you can use, kind of in the moment, and your recovery skills, or those things that you can do to help yourself after a stressful situation is over. So, do you guys have any examples of what you guys do to help you recover from a stressful situation? Any of you guys have something specific that you like to implement? I know that I like to, I'm a big verbal processor, so I like to talk things out a lot. My husband's opposite way. He just needs a lot of time he's more of like the step away from a situation type of thing and just kind of relax. But some different examples that they have are call a friend, make a cup of tea or coffee. For some of you, that might be wine, which is okay. Exercising, doing something that you enjoy, trying to remember one good thing that happened today. So those are just a couple examples. Things are going to be different. Everyone's going to have different recovery tools, but those are some suggestions that they have. And then the final self-care tool is those ongoing self-care tools. So beyond the skills that we utilize during those specific stressful moments, all of us need tools and strategies and supports that are in place every single day in a really ongoing way. So some of those examples are having and using a team. Having a good team can make all the difference. Or having a really, kind of crappy team, that can really affect things. It's kind of what Elise was saying earlier of making sure that you don't allow yourself to become isolated. Having a good team will be a part of that. Surrounding yourself with people who understand what you're going through, or who can just, even if they don't understand, who can be really good listeners. Making time for yourself, which we all know is a lot easier said than done. But it's a really important ongoing self-care tool to just take some time, maybe once a week, maybe once a month, taking time when you can, making that time and that space for yourself and for things that you like to do. Finding something that you enjoy that's about you as an individual and not your role as a parent. And then just providing for your basic self-care needs to get enough sleep, make sure you're eating, make sure you're going to the doctor if you need to, things like that. And a lot of those things can be really easy to neglect when there's kiddos in the home and we're worried about them. So again, we ran a little bit short again today. There's 2 activities that we couldn't do because we're on the phone and not in person. But to kind of wrap up, today we talked about parenting is really hard, but foster parenting is harder. Your feelings matter for lots of different reasons. Self-care is easy on good days, but harder on hard days. Keep in mind what makes a hard day for you. That's going to be different for everyone, but keep in mind specifically what makes a hard day for you. And try to stay on the main road. Acknowledge your feelings, stay aware of yourself, and then build that self-care toolbox. So self-reflection for today, I just ask that you take a moment to think about some of your lifesavers, some of those things that you might find most valuable for getting through the day, and think about how your different strategies might fit into those categories that we talked about, whether it fits into the tools for preparation category, the in your pocket tools, the recovery tools, and the ongoing self-care tools. Last session we had people share, that might be journaling, that might be riding in the car and just listening to music, taking a drive. Someone mentioned last time spending time in meditation and prayer, things like that. Oh, and there's your question. Forgot to switch to it. And then they asked for practice this week that you identify for yourself what makes a hard day and what pushes your buttons. Ask yourself what your body's telling you, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and what you want to do. And be thinking about how you can use this knowledge in your home and in your daily life. So I will not see you guys or talk to you guys again until after Memorial Day. A week from now is Memorial Day, so we will not have session that day. Our next session won't be until June 3rd. So that's it for today. If you guys could please make sure to fill out your evaluation forms and email them back to Sarah. That's how you guys get credit. And otherwise, you guys are all free to go.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Lindsay?
Yes.
Bob couldn't get on this session today. He tried, but for some reason it wouldn't let him in. Bob Zollinger, he's my husband.
Did he get to listen to any of it?
Did he what?
Did he get to hear any of it?
Yeah, but I think he called, I'm not sure who he talked to, if it was Lisa Marks or something, saying because for some reason he's not getting in for the trainings, and so he couldn't even get in today.
Okay, I'll go ahead and add him to the list that he attended, because he's obviously making an effort. Does he call on his cell phone?
Yes, he's on his cell phone. He can use his cell phone. And he tried, and he signed up for the classes, but for some reason it wouldn't let him in.
Okay.
And he didn't get a code, he said.
Oh, okay. So do you know if the access code is the same for everybody? I think it might be.
Let me go back on my back emails and I'll find out. And maybe, I think he tried to get into the code and he couldn't. It wouldn't let him.
Okay. Oh gosh, that's super annoying. The only thing I can think of, if it was typed in wrong, and then you also have to type in that one number audio code to make sure that you can actually hear. Has he been typing in the audio code as well when he calls in on the phone? Because you call the phone number and then you have to type in that big, like 9-number access code, and you have to click pound, and then you have to type in the audio code, which is just a single number, and you have to click pound after that as well.
Okay.
You know, if he's been doing that audio portion. If not, next time.
Yeah, he's been doing kind of the same thing I've been doing to get into mine, and I've just only had to do the access code to get in.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, and anyway, we can try for June 3rd and see what happens there. But
yeah, that's a problem though, because he needs to be getting credit, because I mean, he's trying. So